Diddy offers his life savings for a pardon. Terrified new rules will send him back to jail. What if I told you that one of hip-hop's richest moguls, the man who once commanded empires, owned the spotlight and bragged, "Can't stop, won't stop," is now begging for mercy? Sean Diddy Combs has gone from chart-topping royalty to a prisoner terrified of the future, and he's reportedly willing to sacrifice every last dollar just to escape what's coming next. Frozen assets, collapsing power lawmakers, closing in the downfall is happening in real time. Before we reveal the shocking truth behind his desperate final play, hit that like button, subscribe, and stick with Legends of Black Excellence because this story is on fire. The fall of a hip-hop king. Sean Diddy Combs once defined what it meant to dominate the entertainment world. He built an empire through music, fashion, liquor, branding, television, and cultural influence, projecting an image of a man who could bend the industry to his will. For decades, he lived as if success were endless private jets waiting on the runway, invitations to elite rooms, headlines celebrating the invincible mogul who always found a way to win. He embodied excess ambition and unstoppable momentum. But that version of Diddy belongs to the past. The reality he faces now is a stark reversal of everything he once celebrated, a dramatic fall from extreme privilege to the harsh truth that wealth and fame cannot erase consequences. Today, the man who once commanded crowds stands behind concrete and steel. His schedule is no longer filled with production meetings and luxury events, but court updates, legal restrictions, and total uncertainty. Once surrounded by employees eager to serve him, Diddy is now dependent on a system where his demands hold no weight. Relationships that once guaranteed him opportunities have evaporated. Brands that used his image to attract revenue have severed ties to protect their own reputations. Associates who benefited from his rise have stepped back, unwilling to link their futures to his downfall. The applause has been replaced by silence, an unfamiliar and devastating change for someone who thrived on influence. Financial security, long considered Diddy's ultimate shield, is now under attack. Legal issues have triggered frozen accounts, skyrocketing attorney fees, and staggering business setbacks. His wealth, previously estimated in the hundreds of millions, no longer provides the power it once promised. Investments are stalled. Projects have halted. Public trust, one of the most powerful currencies in entertainment, has vanished. Watching the empire he constructed crumble. Brick by brick exposes a truth he likely ignored for years. Money only works when others are willing to take your call. And today, fewer people are picking up the phone. Yet above all, the greatest blow is psychological. For a man who lived his entire life in control, controlling music narratives, and even people around him, he is now confronted with a world that moves on without hesitation. The fame that once lifted him to the top now accelerates his decline, amplifying every misstep and every consequence. And with his name tied to relentless scrutiny, Diddy faces a reality he never expected. Despite the years of success, glory, and dominance, the world does not wait for him to recover. His dream of permanent power has shattered, and this fall from grace is only the beginning of a far harsher story still unfolding. Broke, paranoid, and out of time. Sean Diddy Combs spent years believing that his financial empire was untouchable. Layers of corporations, brand deals, royalties, and luxury assets designed to keep him far above crisis. But once investigators stepped in, all of those safety nets tightened into chains. Frozen bank accounts have disrupted every aspect of his lifestyle. Employees, unpaid private staff, dismissed regular expenses, questioned by authorities. Watching the flow of money stop has been more than an inconvenience. It has been a direct assault on his identity. People close to the situation describe his reaction as explosive, fueled by disbelief that a man who once signed million-dollar deals before breakfast now requires approval just to access his own funds. That financial paralysis has triggered a psychological storm behind bars. Diddy is no longer dealing with challenges from a position of power. He is reacting from a state of panic. He reportedly paces, constantly struggles to sleep, and rages when presented with new financial reports showing accounts restricted or drained by legal fees. The walls feel closer every day, not only because of confinement, but because his once vast world is shrinking into a space he can no longer control. The sudden loss of authority after decades of commanding every environment he walked into has become a form of pressure he was never emotionally equipped to handle. Authority figures who now regulate his life intensify that stress. Guards who treat him like an ordinary inmate cut into his sense of superiority. Lawyers demanding more funds spark paranoia that they are exploiting him. Anyone who fails to bend to his will becomes a target of frustration, and he lashes out at the smallest provocation. His temper, once managed behind closed doors by publicists and wealth, now erupts without filter. Those who have observed him say humiliation is the emotion that hits hardest, the collapse of the fantasy that he could always buy his way out of trouble. That belief was a foundation of his career, and watching it crumble has shaken him to the core. Internally, fear has replaced confidence. Diddy's mind now cycles through worst-case scenarios, losing what remains of his fortune, seeing more lawsuits drain him, and emerging from prison, a man without influence. Each headline about his downfall reminds him that the public no longer celebrates his achievements. They are waiting for the next chapter of his consequences. And as the weight of reality closes in, the mogul, who once declared, "I'm a survivor," is confronting a terrifying truth. Survival requires stability, and both his money and his mental strength are slipping through his fingers. This is not just a financial disaster. It is a psychological unraveling, one that threatens to consume him long before any judge has the final word. Two doors to disaster: appeal or pardon. Sean Diddy Combs now finds himself standing at the most dangerous crossroads of his life, forced to choose between two costly and uncertain escape routes. The first is a legal appeal, a path every defendant theoretically has the right to pursue. But for Diddy, the cost is staggering. Top appellate attorneys do not merely defend, they deconstruct entire trials, filing motions, preparing new arguments, and scrutinizing every detail. All of that requires time and a fortune. Reports indicate that securing a high-level legal team for a case of this magnitude could absorb around $6 million before a judge even considers a hearing. And the worst part, appeals rarely overturn verdicts unless there are undeniable procedural errors. For Diddy, that means paying a massive price for a slim chance, like betting his last chips on a roulette wheel that rarely lands on red twice in a row. Beyond the cost, the delay itself is brutal. Appeals are notoriously slow. Even if Diddy moves quickly, the timeline stretches forward months, turning into years, while he still remains confined. By the time the case reaches the appellate court, there is a real possibility he will have served most of his sentence already. If he wins, the victory is delayed until irrelevance. If he loses, the financial blow becomes permanent. It is a legal maze where time and money, two luxuries he once had in abundance, are slipping away simultaneously. Diddy, who built his life on fast decisions and fast results, now faces a process designed to move painfully slow. His second option shifts from the courtroom to the political arena, seeking a presidential pardon or commutation. This strategy is even more unpredictable because it depends not on evidence, but on influence relationships with powerful figures willing to risk their own reputation to rescue him. This move requires enormous resources, hiring lobbyists with deep Washington access, paying consultants who navigate shadow networks, and investing in favors that may never be returned. The price tag could soar beyond the appeal itself, draining what remains of his financial cushion. And politically attaching oneself to a scandal-ridden celebrity is a dangerous bargain. A pardon doesn't just erase consequences, it transfers controversy to the one granting it. What leader would willingly inherit that storm? Caught between these two doors, Diddy watches the walls close in. One path demands millions with no guarantee of freedom. The other demands political miracles and sacrifices that could destroy whatever remains of his legacy. His confidence, once louder than any criticism, is now overshadowed by the fear of making the wrong decision. Because if he wagers his fortune on the appeal and fails, he could exit prison with nothing. And if he chases political salvation only to be rejected, he will have burned resources and dignity in a desperate reach for a lifeline that never comes. Each step forward feels like a trap. Each decision feels like a surrender. No matter which door he chooses, the price will be devastating, and only time will reveal whether he walked toward redemption or sealed the final chapter of his empire. The lawyers who ate the empire. Inside the legal battlefield, Sean Diddy Combs has discovered a harsh truth about justice. The courtroom is not a place for the weak or the broke. Every document filed, every meeting requested, every hour spent strategizing translates into a billable moment. His defense team, assembled from prestige and reputation, operates like a luxury machine that demands constant fuel. And that fuel is money. Huge retainers, expert consultants, specialized motions each stacks onto the last until the invoices look like ransom notes for his future. Even though these attorneys are working within the boundaries of their profession, the sheer scale of what they cost turns Diddy's finances into a rapidly melting iceberg. What eats at him most isn't just the price, but the imbalance. In the past, he was the one writing the terms, confident that his dollars guaranteed loyalty. Now his lawyers hold the power. They decide the pace, recommend the next costly move, and assure him it is necessary for his defense. Whether realistic or not, Diddy can't shake the feeling that his wealth, once a shield, has become the primary target. Observers say he winces every time a new bill arrives, proof that another slice of his empire has vanished. For a man long obsessed with control, watching others dictate the fate of his money is torture. The legal process thrives on complexity, and Diddy's situation is nothing short of a labyrinth. Multiple charges, sealed evidence, conflicting testimonies, and ever-evolving allegations require an army to manage. But armies don't march for free. Each lawyer brings along researchers, paralegals, analysts, and administrative staff whose combined efforts form an expensive ecosystem. Inside that world, Diddy is not treated like a star. He is treated like a major client with deep reserves waiting to be tapped. And though these professionals may genuinely believe in the work they're doing, their livelihood depends on cases like his continuing not ending quickly. That reality gnaws at his sense of security, turning every handshake into a reminder that trust comes with terms and conditions. As the months drag on, frustration grows. Diddy reportedly expresses suspicion that his defense isn't just fighting for justice, they're also feeding off his desperation. He fears he is becoming nothing more than a financial lifeline for the very system he is battling. The irony is painful. The team meant to protect him feels like another threat draining him from the inside. And even if the appeal never delivers the victory, he hopes for the lawyers will walk away compensated while he is left to rebuild from the ruins. With each dollar spent, with each uncertain recommendation, one thought becomes harder for him to escape. In this chapter of his life, he isn't the mogul buying outcomes. He is the source keeping everyone else paid. The question haunting him now is simple, but terrifying: what happens when the money finally runs out? A $6 million fight for freedom. That won't matter. One of the cruelest twists in Sean Diddy Combs' downfall is the timing of justice itself. The federal appeal system is notorious for moving at a pace that feels glacial, especially for cases involving multiple charges, sealed evidence, and high-profile attention. In many instances, the process can stretch 2 to 3 years from the moment paperwork is submitted until judges finally review detailed arguments. Diddy's sentence, however, is widely understood to fall around 40 months. That means the clock on his incarceration is ticking faster than the system designed to reconsider his conviction. Even if he pours millions into the effort, he may walk out of confinement before the appeal ever reaches a decisive ruling. Winning, if it happens, may simply mean freedom he already regained through time served. The legal irony is devastating. Appeals are supposed to offer hope, a second chance for fairness, a chance to correct mistakes from trial. But in Diddy's case, hope comes with a countdown. Months of waiting inside a controlled environment, counting days while lawyers debate technicalities, isn't liberation, it's limbo. And because the appellate court prioritizes urgent cases or those involving life-altering errors, a celebrity trying to reduce or reverse a sentence often falls low on the priority list. That bureaucratic reality strips the appeal of its purpose. Diddy isn't fighting for the chance to walk free, he's fighting to erase a stain on his legacy. And the system doesn't move any faster because someone once stood at the top of the music industry. The emotional turmoil from that knowledge adds another layer to Diddy's mental strain. The thought of investing enormous resources into something that might deliver nothing but paperwork feels like a nightmare he can't wake from. He wants a legal victory to declare his name restored. He wants a ruling he can point to that says he was wronged. But appeals aren't about storytelling, they're about procedure. Judges do not retry the case. They examine whether laws were misapplied. That narrow focus makes success rare, and even rarer in situations where the initial verdict was carefully scrutinized by prosecutors. The closer Diddy looks at the path ahead, the more he sees an expensive waiting room with no guarantee of exit. So now he faces a psychological trap: pursue the appeal and risk, watching the effort expire before the outcome matters, or abandon it and accept a chapter of his life forever inscribed in the public record as guilt. Neither choice offers peace. Neither choice restores what he lost. Time, once the ally of a man constantly chasing more, has turned into his greatest enemy. And as each day passes behind locked doors, one truth grows harder for him to deny. Freedom might return long before justice does, leaving him with a bitter reminder that sometimes the system doesn't crush you violently. It suffocates slowly until you realize the fight was never built for you to win. When the courts fail, beg the White House. With the appeal process dragging into uncertainty, Sean Diddy Combs has begun searching for a faster, more dramatic escape, one rooted not in the courts, but in politics. A presidential pardon has entered the conversation as his latest lifeline, something that could instantly erase the remainder of his sentence or even wipe away legal consequences. But obtaining clemency as a path filled with power plays back-channel negotiations and enormous risk. Diddy has spent his entire career navigating elite spaces, and now he is attempting to leverage every political contact, favor, and friendship he has ever built. He knows only a handful of people in America possess the power to rewrite his fate, and he is determined to reach the top of that list. Among those names, one stands out: Donald Trump. The former president has granted high-profile clemency in the past, especially to celebrities, business figures, and cultural icons. That history gives Diddy a sliver of hope. Reports suggest he has attempted to float his situation toward Trump's orbit, hoping mutual acquaintances could help open the right doors. Desperation has reshaped his strategy instead of power calling power. Diddy is now the one trying to prove his worth. He knows pardons aren't granted out of sympathy. They are traded for advantage. So he frames himself as someone who can still influence communities, shape public narratives, or contribute support during crucial political moments. He is willing to spend money, reputation, and whatever capital remains to convince decision-makers that saving him is worth the controversy. But politics is a ruthless arena. A celebrity under legal fire brings more danger than reward. Any leader considering clemency must weigh the backlash news cycles, public outrage, political opponents eager to weaponize the decision. Trump has previously said he would review the facts, but that remark sits in a vacuum, offering no real commitment. For Diddy, that uncertainty is unbearable. Every week without progress feels like another door closing. The more time passes, the easier it is for powerful contacts to pretend they never received his calls. His name, once a guarantee of cultural influence, now triggers headlines filled with scandal. Asking for help used to be a transaction of equals. Now it feels like begging. Inside his mind, fear and determination battle constantly. He tells himself he can still walk back into society as a redeemed figure if he secures intervention from the highest office in the land. Yet each attempt to reach that goal reminds him how fragile his status has become. Lobbyists expect payment up front. Advisors demand proof he can still deliver. Politicians dodge association. If this political gamble fails, he won't just remain incarcerated, he'll have publicly exposed the final collapse of his influence. That's what terrifies him most. Diddy isn't only fighting for release, he is fighting to preserve a legacy that is disappearing faster than any pardon can arrive. And the man who once appeared unstoppable now finds himself clinging to a single hope that someone with power still believes he is worth saving, buying power the pardon that could ruin him. As Sean Diddy Combs pushes deeper into political territory seeking clemency, he is learning that influence in Washington is not earned through glamour or legacy, it is leased, and the rent is due up front. Lobbyists, fixers, and political consultants have made it clear if he wants his name whispered in the right ears, every strategic move must be prepaid. Gone are the days when favors came to him effortlessly. The same wealth he once used to expand his empire is now viewed as a resource to be extracted before anyone even considers helping him. The tone of these conversations isn't warm or reassuring, it's transactional and cold. For perhaps the first time in his career, he's no longer seen as a power broker, but as a desperate man looking for a lifeline. This shift in perception stems from a turning point that changed everything. The public scandal that erupted when his former partner Cassie took legal action, opening a floodgate of accusations that permanently altered his standing. That lawsuit didn't just tarnish his reputation, it triggered a chain reaction of fear. Politicians thrive on safe alliances, and Diddy is now viewed as a liability with too many unanswered questions attached to his name. Even the most discreet operatives worry that associating with him could invite intense media attention or create ammunition for political opponents. Instead of offering him access, they keep him at arm's length, counting his money while keeping their distance from his narrative. The erosion of his network has become painfully visible. Figures who once praised him publicly are now silent. Contacts that previously rushed to pick up his calls suddenly require multiple gatekeepers if they respond at all. Some who benefited the most from his influence have rebranded themselves quietly, scrubbing old photos and captions to remove evidence of closeness. Diddy built much of his career on an understanding of human loyalty, believing success created unbreakable bonds. But the higher the stakes grew, the clearer the truth became. Alliances in fame and politics are fragile. They remain strong only as long as they benefit both sides, and right now he offers little reward and too much risk. Inside confinement, these realizations torment him as much as the legal consequences. He once controlled conversations, relationships, and opportunities. Now he is the one waiting, hoping someone still sees value in him beyond scandal. His wealth continues to bleed into a political system that has refused to show a single sign of commitment. That fear that he could give away millions with nothing in return is louder every day. The man who built a career on confidence must now confront a brutal question. What if power was never truly his, but simply rented from those who have now decided not to renew the lease? The chase for a pardon is no longer just about freedom. It's about proving he isn't already forgotten. Abandoned by the empire he built, Sean Diddy Combs once moved through the entertainment industry like a monarch with loyal generals at every corner, powerhouse executives, brand collaborators, and chart-topping artists under his label's flag. They climbed with him, celebrated beside him, and shared in the spoils of his rise. But when the storm rolled in, accusations piling up, lawsuits multiplying, headlines turning darker by the week, those same alliances shifted from admiration to avoidance. The empire that once looked unshakable now reveals cracks everywhere. Partners who used to praise him openly have quietly begun to dissolve joint ventures, withdraw funding, and rewrite contracts to remove his influence entirely. Silence has replaced solidarity as everyone who once benefited from his shine now works to avoid being scorched by the fallout. The most devastating betrayal for Diddy comes from inside the creative legacy he built his former label artists. Many whose careers he elevated are distancing themselves, editing their narratives to highlight independence while downplaying his role in their success. A few have even suggested they saw warning signs long ago, but lacked the power to speak out. Others have suspended any performance or promotional activity tied to his catalog, waiting to see where the chips fall legally. These subtle shifts, unfollowed accounts, canceled appearances, rebranded stories reflect a larger truth. Bad Boy no longer feels like a badge of honor. It is a name people fear could damage their future. On the corporate side, business collaborators are conducting rapid damage control. Licensing deals are being reviewed, distribution agreements renegotiated, and product lines once sold on the strength of his personality are now marketed without a trace of his presence. Media companies that previously courted his involvement are scrubbing archives and quietly editing promotional materials. Executives who once pursued Diddy for partnerships are now pretending they were never connected. This erasure campaign is not accidental, it is strategic. Corporations protect themselves first, and he has become a symbol of risk that no one wants to shoulder. Every removed photo and deleted reference pushes him further into the shadows. Behind bars, the realization sinks in with each passing week. Power evaporates fastest when loyalty is conditional. The empire he believed was built on personal magnetism and mutual respect now appears held together only by access to movement, money, and momentum, and all three are gone. What hurts him isn't just the absence of support, but the speed of abandonment. People aren't slowly drifting away, they are sprinting. He once preached that success attracts friends. Now he knows downfall reveals who never truly stood with him. As his network collapses into dust, Diddy confronts an agonizing truth. A kingdom without allies is not a kingdom at all. It is merely a memory of a man who thought he would always sit on the throne. Erased Hollywood deletes Diddy from history. There was a time when Sean Diddy Combs seemed permanently carved into the timeline of entertainment history. His name appeared in documentaries, magazine retrospectives, streaming playlists, and award show tributes. But as scandals choke his reputation and legal troubles tighten around him, a new process has begun: slow, methodical, and devastating erasure. Production studios are re-evaluating older content featuring his presence, cutting scenes, re-editing broadcasts, and altering credits to remove association. Television networks have minimized reruns of shows where he once appeared as a celebrated guest. Editors tasked with preserving cultural legacy are being instructed to update context, which in practice means pushing him out of view. The man who once fought to be included in every headline now finds himself disappearing from the pages he helped write. The music sector is moving with equal subtlety and determination. Songs he once produced are returning to platforms tagged under faceless compilation labels rather than carrying his iconic imprint. Images that once showed him standing next to industry giants are now cropped to display only the artists who remain uncontroversial. Promotional posters for anniversaries of classic albums erase his name without acknowledgement. Even tribute playlists, once curated to honor Black music history, have quietly removed the tracks where he took center stage. Executives recognize that association with him comes with a public relations cost, and in a business obsessed with image, he has become a liability. Erasing him isn't loud or dramatic, it's silent and efficient. Media outlets are perfecting the art of rewriting memory. Articles celebrating his achievements have been deprioritized in search rankings, replaced by a wave of reports focused solely on allegations and court updates. Biographers are already revising chapters framing his influence as a footnote rather than a foundation. Future generations who search his name may struggle to separate fact from scandal because the only version history will retain is the one shaped by his downfall. Awards he helped popularize are being rebranded as if his involvement never mattered. And Hollywood has proven time and again that once someone is deemed harmful to the brand, the public will be guided to forget they ever existed. Inside confinement, Diddy must confront the most painful punishment of all. Not prison walls, not legal battles, but cultural deletion. Legacy was his ultimate prize. He spent decades cultivating an empire that he believed would secure his immortality. Now that immortality is being dismantled piece by piece, The spotlight he once commanded has shifted away permanently, leaving him trapped in darkness while the world edits him out. The industry that praised his innovation, his hustle, and his influence is now pretending he was never essential. And as each part of his past disappears, he faces the chilling possibility that history might succeed in doing what no rival ever could: remove Sean Combs from the narrative of hip-hop's rise. When fame becomes a threat to the future, Hollywood's cleanup crew doesn't hesitate. They delete the problem and move on. The last illusion. A comeback. No one wants. Inside confinement, Sean "Diddy" Combs continues to cling to the version of himself that once commanded boardrooms and arenas. In his mind, he remains the mastermind, who could flip narratives with a single statement or launch a trend with one party. He reportedly insists that the world still needs his leadership, his creativity, his voice, believing that he can shape culture from behind prison walls just as he once did from the center of the spotlight. However, the environment around him refuses to obey that vision. No one rushes to implement his ideas. His demands no longer intimidate anyone. The illusion of authority he spent decades constructing now crumbles each time a guard ignores his requests or a consultant declines to engage. He is confronting the brutal contrast between the legend he thinks he is and the reality society has decided to enforce. In desperation, Diddy has started sketching a comeback storyline, an attempt to reclaim relevance and restore dignity once the legal chapter concludes. He imagines a dramatic return through a tell-all documentary, revealing supposed conspiracies against him, hoping viewers will sympathize with his perspective. There are whispers that he wants to pivot into a spiritual rebranding as well, presenting himself as a man reborn through hardship, speaking about transformation, forgiveness, and newfound humility. His former PR professionals have heard these concepts before, yet they have stepped back, aware that selling redemption requires the public's willingness to listen. They know that no marketing blueprint, no emotional monologue can erase the lingering doubts that now define his identity. Their silence signals the truth: this revival pitch has no guaranteed audience. Outside, patience is thin. The entertainment landscape moves faster than ever, and attention is the most expensive currency. Diddy's legacy, once a constant presence in pop culture, is now overshadowed by emerging figures who captivate the public without controversy. Industry insiders recognize that attempting to reintroduce him to mainstream spaces risks backlash that could cost companies far more than any possible reward. Fans who once idolized him are divided, uncertain whether they should admire past achievements or condemn present controversies. And for every story he plans to tell about his resilience, there are louder voices reminding the world why he fell. Hollywood does not slow down for fallen icons. It replaces them efficiently and permanently. This moment becomes the most painful chapter of his journey, the confrontation with irrelevance. The mogul who once defined success now stares at the possibility of returning to a world that has already moved forward. Whether he emerges next year or years later, he must face that his influence may not return with him. This is not a definitive ending, but it is a pause that feels like closure. His ego, once bulletproof, has shattered under the weight of consequences. And as he sits alone rehearsing speeches no one has asked to hear, Diddy must finally accept the question that terrifies him most. What if the world no longer cares about the comeback of a king who lost his crown? In the end, Sean "Diddy" Combs built an empire that once felt too powerful to crack, yet here he stands, watching the world move on without him. Is this justice finally catching up to a man who believed he was untouchable? Or is this another example of an industry tearing down the very legends it helped create? His story isn't over. It's paused, uncertain, and waiting for the public to decide what comes next. So tell us in the comments, is Diddy facing karma or is he being erased too quickly?